Hey there, Catherine Langman here, back with another episode of the Productpreneur Success podcast. Now, as I think we're all aware, we really do live in an age where, platforms like Netflix and Amazon have well and truly trained us all to expect pretty much instant gratification for anything we might want. But I think in business, that kind of short-term thinking can really lead to poor decision making and pretty severe disappointment. And so my guest today is actually someone who I've wanted to have on the show for quite a while, not just because I love her and her brand, but also because I've actually had several of you listeners request to hear her story. But if there's one thing that Ashlee from French Soda has had to learn over the time, it's about, planning well in advance and then also needing to find the lead indicators along the way that tell her if she's improving and heading in the right direction. Because when you run a seasonal brand like French Soda, you really have a much smaller window of opportunity to kind of hit those big sales and growth goals. And of course, same thing with planning well ahead in advance with your manufacturing and all of this kind of stuff. But none of that happens. None of those goals are going to be hit if you're not focusing on the right stuff in the off-season period. So it is a little bit different to those of you who run the kind of business where, they're products that people buy regularly all year long. And then, of course, in Ashlee's situation, throw in a few additional challenges like running your business from a small regional town in the outback, for example. And she actually shares a few more details about, some of the hard things she's had to overcome over time. Now, I suppose whoever said building a business was easy needs to be taken out and shown some reality. I guess if it was easy, everyone would do it, as I like to tell my kids. And I think Ashlee would probably be the first person to tell you that she still feels a long way from achieving her ambitions. But in my opinion, I've known and worked with Ashlee for some time now, she has achieved an enormous amount in her 5 years in business, generating fantastic year-on-year growth by both wholesale and e-commerce. And, she's been so diligent every year, to really making sure that she has her multi-channel marketing strategies in place, that she's always iterating and optimizing and, layering new strategies in place. Not to mention, of course, finding ways to overcome some of those difficulties that she's faced along the way. And, that all of us, we all go through these learning experiences as well, right? And so, she's become a bit of a master at not letting any of that stuff derail her along the way. And so her story is a really great one, and I really am excited to interview her and to share this conversation with you all. So without further ado, let us invite Ashlee onto the show and hear her share her story. So welcome to the show, Ashlee. It's fantastic to have you here.
Hi, Kath. Thanks for your time.
It's really cool. And I know I've had a few people say they were really keen for me to have you on the show. I think people have seen some of the French Soda marketing going out there and seeing a bit about your brand and keen to hear your story. So I guess just to kick us off, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself, your background and, your brand, and let's take it from there.
Sure. So we sell children's rainwear in nice, bright colours, solid colours. I often describe it as timeless and versatile. So something that children can wear from a party to the park, and styles and designs that can be handed down through younger siblings.
Yes.
So, I didn't actually start the business, so I took over the business, had a much wider range and some retail stores in Melbourne, and I took over the business in a bit of a transition period, where the range was slimmed back down just to the rainwear.
Yeah, so becoming more focused. And so how long ago was that?
That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost.
So a good few years in yourself.
Yeah.
And just
still working things out.
Yeah, I think we'll be like that on our deathbeds one day. We'll be 90 something and we'll be still trying to figure some stuff out. And before you decided to buy this business and become an entrepreneur, Tell us a little bit about what you used to do.
Oh, yes. It seems so long ago.
I
So,
know.
I'm a teacher. I trained as a teacher, qualified from kindergarten to year 12. So I actually specialised in computer studies and English for secondary. And I did keep teaching. It was only last year and this year that I haven't actually had set part-time teaching days.
Yeah, and you have a couple of kids as well.
Yes, I have two very busy boys, so there's lots going on.
That's a nice way to put it. I like that. And so when you think about, 5 years ago when you were, looking to take this on with French Soda, what was it that really motivated you to get into business ownership specifically?
Yeah, I guess it was probably quite a familiar story. I was home on my second maternity leave and just going back to that, I guess that juggling daycare, teaching days, all of those things. So I was looking for a change. I've always been quite an avid online shopper myself, so I wasn't scared of the e-commerce sort of structure.
Yeah.
And I liked the structure of this with the wholesale and the retail side,
Yeah.
not being committed to be in a certain place at a certain time.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I did lots of traveling, lots of excursions and meetings in my previous role. So I guess I still travel a little bit, but it's more on my terms.
Yeah. 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 That, like you say, the on your terms and not needing to be in a set place at a set time. When you're in a traditional career, that lack of flexibility is so difficult, really, once you become a parent.
It is, and we live in like a small regional town, so daycare wasn't readily available. It was, I mean, working at home with the children when they're young, it's not ideal either. You
Yeah, that
definitely
has its own
do
challenges.
need some daycare. Um,
Yes, we need that for our own sanity some days,
yeah,
I would say.
definitely.
Oh dear. So I want to dive into a little bit more about your journey. So I know because I know you and we've worked together for some time that you feel like you're a long way from being done and achieving what you want to achieve in your business. But you're 5 years in, so let's have a little bit of a chat about some of the things that you've had to overcome over this period of time. Because for context for the listeners, Ashlee, like you just said, you're operating in a regional town, so that poses its own challenges sometimes. And it has been a learning journey over 5 years. So tell us maybe 3 of those kind of difficult situations or scenarios or challenges that you've experienced so far.
Sure. Probably an ongoing challenge for me is offshore manufacturing. So
Mm,
our products have quite high minimum order quantities that we need to meet. Um, and the lead times are quite long too. It can
yeah.
take sort of 6 months from the time we place an order to when we get the goods. And as you mentioned, we're not located anywhere near a port, so there's significant travel for the goods to be coordinated there.
Mm,
So that's been really hard. Finding reliable manufacturers, we take, our quality control and everything very seriously. But we have had a couple of orders that didn't meet our standards. So that's an expensive exercise too. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that, well, I know I've been through that, and I'd say probably a lot of our listeners have as well. It's so tough,
so
really
it
demoralizing.
is. It is. And yeah, like I said, and just communicating with those factories and getting
Mm,
those standards high is really hard too.
mm,
So that's one that we keep battling with.
yeah.
Some other challenges, probably just selling the two core products. It's really hard to keep the excitement, keep that marketing going, to always have something new to talk about. As I said, the lead times are really long, so
Mm,
it's not
mm,
like we do lots of color drops or anything throughout the year. We generally have the one season launch.
yeah.
Um, so having content to keep us going through those other times too.
Yes, that has been challenging, and also getting
Yeah.
some help with the content creators as well hasn't
It's
necessarily been the easiest.
such a beast content. When
It's
you
like
get
the
great
Cookie
content,
Monster.
yeah.
Yeah. It's always hungry.
So exciting when you get it, and it's great, but it's really deflating too when you don't get it. So we work with brand reps. We have paid photographers and content creators that we work with. We have customers who tag us on Instagram, which is great for resharing. Yeah, so that's probably being specific in the briefs is something that I've had to learn there to overcome that challenge.
Yeah.
And maybe letting go of some of my expectations. Some brand reps just don't work out. Our brand reps are generally in exchange for product, for content,
Yep.
and probably just accepting that that is the case and not getting too worked up about it.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, at the
yeah.
same time, like your brand French soda, it's it has that really playful, vibrant, colorful aesthetic about it. So you can't accept something that's really muted and quiet looking.
No, that's right. Lots of filters. So we do have to be careful. I guess we mostly use the content we get. It's just curating that and making sure we spread it through the Instagram feed and
Yes.
keeping
Yeah.
the content to match the campaigns.
Yeah. And like you said before, trying to have something new to talk about. So using the content like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like the seasonal business side of things? Because I think that, some people probably don't really understand about, that's how some brands are.
It is. And that is a challenge as well, because I think in the off season is often when you're working really hard and you're spending the money on all of those photo shoots, you're getting your goods here. So that's when you have most of your expenses. And it sort of sometimes feel like you're really hustling and not much happening.
That's
And
right. You're
then,
working really hard and you're not
yeah,
seeing the fruits of the labor so
that's
immediately. Yeah.
right. And once the season changes, often that can be a relief. It's been an unpredictable season though for rainwear this year. So
Yeah. It keeps like getting hot and cold and wet in the wrong times, doesn't
yeah.
it?
So we just have been we've maintained our messaging pretty much year round this year.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
do have some bigger dreams to expand the range. But for the moment, the focus, I'd just like to probably expand our distribution and just get some really good systems and processes in place before we introduce another product and
Yeah.
not a lot of SEO and more photos and
Wind up the system again for
yeah.
something. So now that you've kind of mentioned some of those communication strategies and platforms and things, what have been some of those marketing strategies that have driven, the positive results? And I guess, you can talk about the e-commerce side, you can also talk about the wholesale side, because, that is part of your business or half of your business.
Sure. Probably paid traffic.
Yeah.
As much as it's not straightforward and it's probably not as easy to measure as it was. You can definitely see an increase in both the wholesale and the B2C side of things when those ads are on. Word of mouth is also such a challenge, so hard to measure, but when you go to trade shows and things like that, wholesale stores, or like retail stores, out wholesale customers have found you through customers wearing the goods into their store. Often brand reps, they're really good advocates of the brand. So it's really tricky to measure those sort of
Yeah.
SEO
Yeah.
continues to be like good for us, sending traffic. Again, 2 keywords, it's easier to optimize for than stores with a wide range of terms. But it's something that I guess you have to say, well, nothing's set and forget. But sort of hoped with SEO that you could tick that off and move on. But
totally.
not really the case.
One of our new clients is a jewelry brand, and they have something like, I don't know, 6,500 products or something like that in their range. So I'm very glad I'm not the one working on that.
Yeah, gosh, I wouldn't know how to manage the overwhelm there.
No, handball it, I think. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So on the let's talk about both the wholesale and the e-commerce side of things. So because we obviously got to see each other in Sydney, you were at one of those trade shows, and so how many trade shows would you typically do in a year? And again, I know it's a big effort for you because you have to travel from regional to city location.
in the past, we've attended the Sydney and Melbourne shows. This year, probably we'll just do the Sydney show.
Yep.
Just that seasonality. So,
Yes.
kind of timing of the August show, most people are starting to think about Christmas gifting
Yes.
and not so much their rainwear.
Yes.
So, yes, the wholesale trade shows we've done. I haven't actually attended any retail expos like the PBC and events like that. So that's something I would like to look at. I guess maybe now I've got both boys at school, that's an option.
That might be a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Any tips you can offer our listeners for the trade shows, though, like when you're trying to really get some good leads and maybe take some orders at the show and follow up, or anything that you could mention there?
I think promoting that you're there. The first couple of shows that I attended, actually, the lookbook, the Life in Style includes the lookbook, which is actually really quite valuable because that's something that people look at before and after. But the first couple of shows, I'd often have clients say, "Oh, I missed you. I didn't see you there." So I think we could get, because we're standing in one spot, how overwhelming it is for the visitors for everything that they need to look at. So just making sure that you're in people's minds before you get to the event. So you stand out when you're there and they stop by. And again, that follow up. So we have welcomed some new stores on board since the show, which is really great too.
Yes.
So
you do have to follow up. You can't...
That's tricky because I'm not great at the hard sales pitch, but again, it's just reminding people that we're there as an option.
Yeah. And you know what? I think most people wouldn't feel comfortable, doing that kind of sales process. It's not something many people really enjoy, I don't think.
No. No, having an offer too, I think, helps for those people that are primed to buy at the show.
Yes.
So something that's quite time sensitive at the show can get those sales at the event.
Yeah. And maybe including that for the follow-up as well, just with a bit of scarcity.
Yes. With all promos.
Yeah, totally. So on your e-commerce marketing, or I shouldn't say e-commerce, but the digital marketing side of things, you mentioned before that when you're running ads, you'll see wholesale inquiries go up as well, and I presume that's from the social media advertising rather than Google specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is really cool. And I mean, I know you can't necessarily measure that per se, but I guess we've got to remember that the wholesale stockists, they're normal people too. They're not just corporate.
That's right. Everyone's on that platform, and just something you mentioned there was about the awareness. That's probably been one of my big learnings recently, is that trying to find measuring the value of awareness. It's hard to measure.
It is hard to measure.
Return.
But it goes without saying, if people don't know you exist, they're probably not going to buy from you.
That's right.
It's a catch-22 situation, isn't it? Yeah. So let's dive in, if you don't mind. Can we dive into, I know this was last year, but your Messy May Play campaign, I think, probably wasn't perfect. There probably were things that we could have all done better, but it was a lot of fun and it did generate some good results, and also I think some long tail results from the SEO side of things as well. And it was such a fun, creative idea that you came up with for that campaign. And so can we just talk about that a little bit for our listeners and just unpack it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So Messy Play May was, a month-long campaign where we had, that was actually the first time I'd tested out bundles.
Yes.
Well, I guess over a longer period of time. So we had a discount when you purchased a bundle. And then we had our Instagram messaging and our ads and things centered around messy play. So we had some play ideas going out on Instagram, trying to get customers involved, tagging us in their messy play. We had that as content for our blogs and email, and yeah, paid traffic going to that messy play May landing page as well.
Yeah, and the offer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because, you know, like something that I know so many businesses struggle with, and like you and I still struggle with this too, I know, but you know, like what do we talk about in our content? You know, coming up with content ideas is really hard to do on an ongoing basis, but having that theme as the anchor for the month, you know, there were so many different ways you could talk about it and get your customers involved, which was really exciting, I thought, to see.
There was, and I use a template that we got through the mastermind group for campaigns, where we have that overarching and then the 4 sort of angles that you could take on the messaging. And then I've also added to that, just when I'm doing my own planning, is like an image that will be my guiding image. And often it might not even be with my own products, but that's an image then that I can give to brand reps to guide them.
Yeah.
Some content as well.
That's such a cool idea, because oftentimes content creators are visual people.
Yeah.
Except for the writers, of course. But yeah, what a great way to give them the inspiration as part of the brief. Yeah.
But even those writers, some of those 4 messaging ideas might not be fleshed out to its fullest, but they might just include a couple of keywords that they can work with too.
Yeah. And from memory, I mean, I don't remember specific stats, but that month compared to the year before, same month, I think was a pretty good growth.
It was good, and it was really good in extending our season, actually, even though we say May. So traditionally our season is quite early in the year, where I think people are getting organised, they're buying their rainwear, and then once winter actually arrives, they're holding out for the sales.
Yes.
So by running that promotion, then it extended our season a little bit too after Easter.
Yes. So whether we do Messy Play May again this year, or we come up with something new.
I've just been speaking with Sally. We're working on something exciting, very similar concept. Hopefully a little collaboration with another brand in there as well.
So cool.
Our audiences there.
Yeah, and just for listeners, I don't want you to miss out on that tip, because that is a really cool one. Like anytime you can get a warm introduction to an audience, not only is it obviously a cost-effective way to get your brand in front of people, because you're not paying for it like with advertising, but it's also more trusted as well, because it is that, you know, the kind of ride on the coattails of the credibility from that referral. So
yes, that's right.
We love collaborations. So really, really cool stuff there. I want to ask you a little bit about, you know, if you were talking to somebody who's starting out in business, or, you know, earlier stage in their business, what kind of advice would you pass on about launching and running a brand based on what you've learned so far?
Probably sounds a little bit overwhelming, but you do need to know it all and be across all of those areas. So I know you talked about having owned, earned, and is it paid? Are they the 3? So you really do need to, like, they I guess it's that web, they really do feed each other. And that's been a little bit hard for me, because I sort of tried to compartmentalize things and try and do one area, but just to try and I guess get a firm understanding of those, and then make sure that you're constantly going back to all of those areas.
That constant iteration and optimizing along the way. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. I do believe that understanding how it all works, and I certainly don't think any of us should be doing all of it 100% of the time indefinitely, because you'd be a bottleneck really at that point. But you can't, you just kind of need to know. You need to know enough to be dangerous, so that when you're working with other people, you can hold them to account. Really.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Yes, yeah, and it just being it's much harder to combat when just even campaigns and things take a bit of a turn that you weren't expecting them, to try and bring them back to your focus and reflecting the brand values too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I think so we're recording this probably before an episode that I've just recorded that will come out, but the listeners will have heard that one before they hear this one. That's a bit of a confusing statement. But yeah, like I have been talking on the show recently about, making sure that you really do understand the trade. Like we kind of need to think of this as a bit of a trade. And it's not like we're just packing sandwiches or something like that. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So we sort of need to understand the ropes, and then know how the business this sort of business model operates rather, so that we can know how to, what levers do we pull, where do we put our focus, where do we put our efforts in order to try and generate growth.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something going in, I had a basic understanding of what all of these things, what SEO was and the role of Google, but definitely not an in-depth understanding until I've been through your website formula course. Just
yeah. But
conversion optimization and all of those things.
One thing I definitely want to just mention here too, though, because I know we have a bunch of type A perfectionists in our audience. So don't assume that you need to go and learn it all before you even start.
No. No, you have to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. And knowing and doing, they're probably two issues for me too. I often do a lot of the research and best practice, but actually implementing it is far better than knowing what it should be like and not doing it.
That done is better than perfect idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Which again is probably a little challenging for our type A perfectionists in the audience. You know who you are. I always say I'm the recovering version of that.
I'm getting better.
Yeah. we try. Oh dear. So what are you looking forward to in French Soda, or just for yourself as a business owner this year and beyond? Like what do you see as the next steps for you?
I'd really like to, something I've mentioned a few times, but I'd really like to get into some more SMS marketing. So not just choosing how I use it wisely. So perhaps adding to some abandoned carts and things like that, rather than just, that I'm sure we've all unsubscribed from the 10 o'clock message every Saturday from some of the bigger brands that we get.
Gosh, yeah. You have a $10 voucher to spend.
So just looking at ways that I can weave that in.
Yeah, and which we can do with Klaviyo. We can use that in the automations, in the flows, as well as for campaigns like your Black Fridays and stuff.
And probably we're sort of selling a lot more into New Zealand this season too. So a market that I'd probably like to.
Rain over there.
Yes. It seems to be all or nothing with the weather. You have to be very careful with your messaging around the weather. But and that's a culture that enjoys being outside too. So
very much so. Yeah. And you've just touched on something that I really did want to ask today, and I have forgotten so far. But a culture that enjoys being outside. Obviously, a lot of Aussies do as well, but part of the French Soda brand and, the message that you've always been trying to convey is really about that, getting outdoors and having the outdoor play and being active, kids being active and all of that kind of stuff. Was that part of the brand when you bought the business, or is that really been your push?
The brand probably had a little bit more of a fashion focus.
Yes.
But I guess my background in education and the amount of time that children on screens and things, that is probably something that I probably push a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely still part of the brand, but it is something that I am passionate about. I mean, there's a fine line. Technology, they're all skills that we need to be lifelong learners, but there is nothing like just putting your kids in some gumboots and getting them out of the house.
Yeah. Jumping in puddles, making mud cakes, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. For me, like I view marketing really as that kind of storytelling, really, and with your brand and that messaging and the brand values that you've really established. I feel like it's really enabled you as the brand to be able to tell those stories visually as well as in your words. And what's the tagline you have on your website? Like something about the Born Explorer. I can't remember now.
Yes, it is. Yes, for the
Yeah.
Born Explorer.
Yes. And it makes the brand so much more engaging. And I really do feel like as consumers, we're all people, right? But we remember the stories more than perhaps a cute picture that's just cute but no real angle to it, if you know what I mean.
We also sort of on that discuss a little bit about having a colourful childhood. So injecting that fun and that playfulness into
well,
I guess
your
fashion
marketing.
choices.
Yeah, true. And presumably that has made it maybe that little bit harder when you are trying to work with the brand reps and with photographers and things like that. But when you find the right ones, they do get it, and they've been giving you some really cool stuff.
They have. We have got some great brand reps and photographers on board at the moment. Yes.
Yeah.
And a couple actually are already working on our Nature Play May. So
fantastic.
Some nice ones coming up.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I can't wait to see them.
Digital video is another, going back to the challenges.
Video content.
Getting quality video content is something that is hard. And just, I guess, playing into the needs of those platforms.
Can't get away from it though, can we? We've got to produce these short videos, don't we? No, that's really cool. So in a minute we'll get you to share the social handles so people can go and check out some of this cool content. But before we get there, I've got 3 kind of rapid fire questions to finish off, which I'm trying to ask everyone I get on the show. And the first question is, what advice would you give yourself back when you first started, based on your experience and what you know now?
Probably that it's a long game. I think I've said to you before, like, I'm quite impatient. I order things express post when I want them.
Yeah.
So it's hard when you're working on your long-term projections and things like that.
Yeah. For you, I guess it's extra hard because it's the long lead times and the big orders and trying to plan so far out in advance.
And those seasons, just I guess we have sort of a smaller window to sometimes achieve some of those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So just reframing for that long-term vision rather than the short term. I don't know. I still struggle with that too, but it is very important, and I have been trying to think more like that. Second question, what has been one of the best decisions that you have made in your business?
It's definitely joining the mastermind. This wasn't a plug. I wasn't worded out, but definitely. So I started off doing the website formula course. I think they might have some different names now.
Yeah.
Get those foundations, but just access to professionals who specialize in different areas. When you work on your own, as a lot of people starting brands do, it's really invaluable.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. And to your team too.
Yeah, thank you. And last question for you today. What do you love about being a business owner?
Flexibility is important,
Yes.
but probably that nerdy sort of teacher response of like always learning new things. Sometimes they are overwhelming and they are challenging, but there's nothing quite like figuring something out and conquering it. So, and like
Music to
business,
my ears.
business, we get
Yeah.
5 or 6 of those challenges a day. Don't conquer them all,
Nice
but
if we could space them out just neatly. One a day, please. That'll be
just when you need them to boost you along. But
that's it. Yeah. It is a bit like a
yeah,
big puzzle though, this business thing, isn't it? And
absolutely.
sometimes we'll try a piece and it might not be quite right. So we'll just have to try something else. But it is, that creative problem solving. Yeah, like that's what it is really. So
And I think it's nice even too for the boys to see that. They sort
definitely.
of, how they hang out in here and climb the boxes and things like that. They pick up on some of those things
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
When I had my first business, my boys were your boys' age, and obviously they're older now, but my second son he's desperate to become an entrepreneur. So even though sometimes along the time, all those years I was occasionally worried that, it was the too much iPad time or, this, that, or the other, but no, they love it. So
yeah, little sponges.
yeah,
Well, he's a big sponge now, but
yeah, mine are big sponges now.
yeah.
Oh dear. So for our listeners, if they want to go and check out where French Soda is and seeing what you're all about, where should we direct them to?
So our website is frenchsoda.com.au and probably more active on Instagram at French Soda Outdoor Wear.
Awesome. And of course, we will include those links in the podcast show notes page. So
Thank
go
you.
and check it out, everyone, and see how fun this brand is, because it is a lot of fun.
Thanks, Kath.
Thank you so much for jumping on with me today. I've been so keen to share this French Soda journey and your journey, Ashlee. So really, really happy to be able to share your story with our audience.
Thanks, Kath. Wonderful talking to you.